This is the Thursday, October 9th, 2014 meeting of the Zoning Board of Examiners and Appeals. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Vig?
Here.
Mr. Kars?
Here.
Mr. Ron? Ms. Eicher?
Here.
Mr. Hart?
Here.
Ms. Dole? Ms. McKay?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry. We have no minutes before us this evening. Special order of business or disclosures. Are there any disclosures this evening? Seeing none, I do believe that moving on to our consent agenda, we do not have a quorum with respect to the resolution that is before us on the consent agenda, so that resolution will be have to automatically be postponed until our next meeting. Appearance requests, we have none. Unfinished business, actions on public hearings, regular agenda, we have none. Public hearings, we have one case this evening. It is case 2014-0133. This case was postponed from the previous meeting, and at that time, as we had a short board, the one-time postponement was offered and accepted by the petitioner. That being the case, while we do have a short board this evening, this case will be heard this evening unless the petitioner so wishes to pay to postpone. But we are proceeding. With that, I would like to read the order of business for variance hearings. The chair shall introduce the variance and explain the procedure to be followed. The variance case number and the name of the applicant shall be read into the record. The board shall hear and rule on any objections to the sufficiency of notice. The board shall hear a brief staff presentation outlining the variance not to exceed 10 minutes. On conclusion of the staff presentation, the board members and the applicant may then direct questions to the staff through the chair. The applicant shall give his or her presentation not to exceed 10 minutes. Throughout the proceedings, the burden of proof rests upon the applicant, who must convince the board by a preponderance of the evidence that the variance should be granted. On conclusion of the applicant's presentation, the board members and the staff may then direct questions to the applicant through the chair. The hearing shall then be open for public testimony. Each person has 3 minutes. Representatives of groups have 5 minutes. All persons who testify may be questioned by the board, staff, or the applicant. On conclusion of the public testimony, the staff, followed by the applicant, shall have the right of rebuttal. The board shall proceed to develop oral findings and conclusions with regard to the variance and disposition of the variance. The staff shall reduce the oral findings and conclusions to writing for subsequent adoption by the board at a later meeting. The matter then rests with the board, and the chair asks for a positive motion from the board. With that, our first and only case this evening, case 2014-0133. The petitioner is Richard E. and Linda J. Moon. The petitioner has indicated he's present. Could staff provide us with the sufficiency of notice, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. On September 3rd, 2014, 58 public hearing notices were mailed. There have been no comments returned either in support of or opposition to the variance request. However, the applicant did submit a petition with signatures of 13 neighbors stating non-objection to the requested variance.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien. Would you proceed with your presentation?
Yes, just briefly, as originally submitted, this application included 2 variances. One was for a lot width for proposed lot 1, and the other was for lot area for both proposed lots 1 and 2. On page 2, there was a recalculation of the lot width, and it's based on the new Title 21, and it is based on figure number 3, whereby you can measure the lot width from a front yard setback to a side yard setback for a corner lot, which this is. The resulting lot width, based on that measurement, is 319 feet approximately. Therefore, the variance for lot width for proposed Lot 1 was withdrawn. The one remaining variance now is to allow a subdivision of BLM Lot 145 into two lots where neither Lot 1 nor 2 will meet the 43,560 square foot minimum lot area in the Chugach Eagle River R6 district. In reviewing in this case, 8 standards for a variance, Standard 1 appeared to be met. The gross square footage of the petition site is approximately 2.5 acres. This is a corner lot, and 30-foot wide right-of-way dedications were required for both Husky Street adjoining the west property boundary and James Way adjoining the south property boundary. And that lot, the area of those dedications is 17,547 square feet. The lot size was further reduced by a take of 75 feet by 150-foot portion at the southeast corner of the property for the installation of electrical facilities. This further reduced the lot size by 5,625 square feet. As a result of the property take and the right-of-way dedication, the net lot area is approximately 85,703.75 square feet. At that lot size, it's not possible to meet the 43,560 square foot lot area for both lots. So the variance request is brought forward to allow subdivision of the lot to create two lots, which will be approximately 42,800 some square feet. Strict application of the code would deprive the owner of rights. I looked at the surrounding area, and there have been a number of lots that have been subdivided into two lots. There is one property that was subdivided into 3 lots. That was done before zoning. Those are legal nonconforming lots of record. None of the lots that were subdivided were impacted by property acquisition for a public purpose, and they did contain approximately 2.5 acres, and they could meet the minimum lot size that was required by under the old code when those properties were subdivided. The hardship is not self-imposed. The reduction of lot area was the result of a partial property acquisition for public infrastructure. The variance, if granted, will not adversely affect the use of the adjacent property. If granted, it would allow 2 lots to be created. One lot is already developed with a single-family residential use. The other lot would also be developed with a single-family residential use. It would not allow, the variance would not permit a use that is not already allowed within the applicable zoning district. So therefore, the variance appears to be in keeping with the intent of the code. The concern for the variance is it is served by on-site well and septic, and the main concern, and it was requested of the petitioner's representative to demonstrate that the new lot that would be created could be served by on-site septic and maintain a 100-foot separation distance from all adjacent wells. And the petitioner's representative did provide information that that 100-foot separation distance could be maintained. So it appears that the public health, safety, and welfare of adjacent property owners would not be affected. There should be no impact on the Americans with Disabilities Act and a structure on the new undeveloped lot, if the variance is granted, there's nothing to prohibit that structure from being constructed with universal access if that is the need of the future owners. And the variance represents a 2% variance, which is minor in nature, and it is the minimum required to allow the subdivision of the property. Therefore, the department does recommend approval of the variance from AMC 2110-060C.1. It's the table 2110-6, table of dimensional standards for lot area, as all of the 8 standards appear to be met subject to the following conditions, which are shown on page 9. One is just outlining what the variance approval, if it is approved, would be for, and the other is to record a notice of zoning action. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien. Are there any questions of staff by the board? Mr. Vig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. O'Brien, on standard number 4, where we're evaluating whether or not the action would adversely affect the use of adjacent property, on the top of page 8 of the packet, you reference that it should not adversely affect the adjoining lots, provided that a buffer of existing natural vegetation is preserved along the north boundary. Is that in your opinion, is that something that should be a condition of approval? Or could you speak to that, please?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Vig, ideally, if natural vegetation could be preserved along the north property boundary, I am not sure what requirements, clearing requirements would be needed to construct a house, develop a on-site septic system, and actually install a well. At the minimum, it would be nice to preserve a 10-foot buffer of natural vegetation, if that's possible. But I was hesitant to place it as a condition because I didn't know if that would exact an undue hardship on the property owner in terms of development of the future lot, if it were to be, the variance were to be granted and the lot were to be developed, because it is such an unusually shaped resulting lot. And referring to page 11, the property to the north does have quite a stand of natural vegetation on it, and the houses that is developed on that lot is some distance away from the future, any future home that might be developed close to the north property boundary.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of staff by the board? Any at all? If not, could the applicant come forward, please? Could you please state and spell your name for the record?
Richard E. Moon, R-I-C-H-A-R-D, E-M-O-O-N.
Thank you, Mr. Moon. You have 10 minutes for your presentation. And again, we must find that all standards are met. So if your presentation could, at a minimum, address those standards.
Okay, I'm not real clear as to what I'm to present, if it's other than what Margaret just read and what is in the writing here. Coach me on that.
Oh, well, I'm not allowed to coach you on that, but you do have
Yeah.
I know you have a surveyor here as well.
Right.
This is your opportunity to provide your case if you wish. If your case is you're in agreement with
Yeah.
staff, that's well within your rights, or if there's any
I guess
additional
what,
or different
I guess
information
what
you'd like
comes
to
to
provide.
mind more than almost anything is when we bought this property, and I think it's addressed in the history, the narrative, background narrative, we bought it in 1985 with the understanding it was 2.5 acres. And the surveyed as-built at that time clearly showed it as 2.5 acres. That little triangle referencing, best way to look at that is, well, even on page 2, that little shaved off corner on the southeast side, our property line showed that this was a square, a 330 by 330, 2.5 acres. That original survey has been proven since to be an error. So the realtor, relying on that as-built, advised us we're buying 2.5 acres. Part of our idea was we would build our house, raise our kids, and have invested in our primary residence plus some property, knowing that it was zoned R6 and we could divide. So then 30 years have gone by, and granted the zoning, the R20, the Title 21, excuse me, has changed somewhat, but in conformity with the new Title 21, because we don't have that little triangle, that's what made this area issue come forward. So I guess the bottom line of all that is that our intent is not to develop that adjacent lot right now. Granted, it needs to be developable, which it clearly is for a house site, but our whole idea was let's buy property that we can build on and have investment for the future in a lot that we can split off and retain. And that's all we're trying to do, is retain a usable corner lot there. So I don't know if that adds any clarity to anyone, but that was somewhat addressed in the background narrative. We did not understand all these years that we didn't own 2.5 acres. And it's unfortunate that the as-built and, of course, the realtor was misled at the original purchase. Other than that, the question Mr. Vig had was very well addressed by Margaret, because in my opinion, that photograph on page 11 really shows the vegetation. And my next door neighbor, her place is in the middle, as you can see, of the next 2.5 acre lot. So there's quite a huge margin of natural vegetation. And over the years that we've been there, there's been minimal development of that property. And of course, on the lot we're proposing splitting off on the corner of Husky and James Way, there's vegetation from that north property line all the way to James Way. So the logical building site would face Husky and have lots of vegetation on both lateral sides of the house. So I believe it really conforms well to the aesthetic quality of the neighborhood. I can't think of anything else. Do you want to add anything, Ken? Okay.
And again, if you could state and spell your name for the record, please.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Kenneth Lang, L-A-N-G. Last year, Mr. Moon hired me to survey his property and proceed with the subdivision. One of the first things I did was order a certificate to plat, a title report. And at the beginning of the title report, it clearly said, this, whatever the BLM lot 145, accepting that portion taken by the state of Alaska. And then the red flags went up because his old as-built did show it as an easement rather than a taking, but it's a taking. So we've tried to equalize the existing lot and the two new lots as far as lot area is concerned, and the staff has concluded that all 8 requirements have been met. The only comment I really have has to do with the approval statement on page 9. We have not actually surveyed the lot yet, and the net lot area could vary. These are BLM lots that were originally platted in the 50s, and the lot area that we come up with at the end could vary by between 50 and 100 square feet. I doubt it would be more than 100 square feet. But your statement number 1 under your approval, it says lots 1 and 2 containing 42,820 square feet. If you could just add the word approximately, I think that would cover us down the road when we do actually do a survey and come up with the final lot area determination. Other than that, we would ask for your approval of this variance application.
Thank you, Mr. Lang and Mr. Moon. Are there any questions of the applicant by any of the board members? Mr. Vig.
Thank you. I have a question for Mr. Lang. Then if we were to add the word approximately as you suggest, then would it be your intent that you would create the line between the two lots such that the lots would be of equal size?
Yes. Yes, it definitely would be of the same size within 1 square foot.
Okay.
Depending whether it's even or odd on the total.
And then I have a question for Mr. Moon, if you come up, please. And you mentioned the neighbor to the north and the location of her home on that lot. Was she one of the folks who signed a non-objection statement that you provided in the packet?
Correct.
Okay. Which one is she?
That is Mile Johnson. In fact, she goes by Mile. I'm not sure what her formal name is.
Oh, yeah, I know who she is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I just happen to just think of one other incidental, I guess, so to speak. It doesn't show on this map, but I'm going to say 3/4 of a mile away, a similar variance was applied for and granted. In a very similar situation of ours, they wanted to retain one lot full size, an acre, and the other one was under. And they were, I think 7% is what the amount they were off from the minimum acre. So ours being 2 or less is a minimal request, I guess, in the size issue.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of the applicant by the board? Thank you. Does staff have any questions of the applicant?
Through the chair, I was wondering if Mr. Lang could share if the title report stated when that property was taken.
I happen to have it right here. Accepting therefrom that portion as described by declaration of taking recorded May 31st, 1968, book 161 at page 431.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we will, the hearing shall be open for public testimony. Is there anyone from the public wishing to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing no one, the public hearing is closed. Does staff have any rebuttal?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Does the applicant have anything to rebut? They've indicated they do not. With that, the public testimony is closed. The matter rests with the board. Mr. Vague.
I would just like to ask Ms. O'Brien if modifying the condition as Mr. Lang described would be acceptable to the department.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Vig, I think that's a good safeguard. Thank you.
That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Again, with that, the matter rests with the board, and I'd ask for a positive motion from the board member, please. Yes, Ms. Eicher.
I'd like to make a motion to approve case number 2014-0133.
Thank you. Would that be subject to the conditions on page 9?
Subject to the conditions on page 9 with the additional subject of adding the word approximately on condition number 1 in between the words containing and 42,821 square feet.
Thank you, Ms. Eicher. Mr. Hart, you've indicated you'd second that motion?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Ms. Eicher, could you speak to your motion, please?
I was persuaded by the comprehensive position put forth by staff and as supplemented by Mr. Moon and Mr. Lang that the conditions 1 through 8, the standards 1 through 8 were met, and suggest that, or I will be voting in the affirmative to approve the variance subject to the 2 recommendations put forth on page 9.
Thank you, Ms. Eicher. Mr. Hart.
I concur with the previous member that spoke.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Are there any further questions, comments from any of the board members? If not, please vote. That motion passes by a vote of 5-0. Again, in order to pass, a majority of the fully constituted board need to vote in favor. That received 5 votes, so that motion does pass. I do need to read for the record that every final decision of the board shall clearly state on its face it is a final decision with respect to all issues involved in the case, and that the parties have 30 days from the date of mailing or other distribution of the decision to file an appeal to the Superior Court. With that, that is our one and only case this evening. And I know there's some people that have places to be. Are there any brief comments that any board members would like to make before we adjourn? I believe we have 3 cases next month. Just one comment real quickly. We were sent an email notifying us for some training, I think, in November 15th. I strong-armed the city, and they're willing to pay for 2 board members to go to that. So if anyone is interested in spending their Sunday on some planning training, please let me know, and we can get your tuition covered. First come, first serve. Any other comments? If not, we're adjourned. Oh, Ms. O'Brien, I take my gavel back real quickly.
There is a request if the chair could contact the 8th floor regarding the need for replacements to fill the 2 vacant seats is really critical for the public, for the board members themselves. It's really critical that they speed up the replacement process.
I would definitely do. Who's the, now that Jay Jackson's gone, I don't know who the person is. Who's the contact?
Can I email that information to you tomorrow?
Oh, yes, please do.
Thank you.
Yes, and I will definitely do that then.
I should have thought to get that information and bring it with me to the board tonight. I'll do it tomorrow.
Yes, I would like to do that. So yes, please do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other comments? With that, I reinstate the gavel process.